Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Spanish United Radio. I'm your host, Enrique Sanchez, founder and director of Spanish United. On tonight's program, we're going to be having a very special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaac Torres, and I am a obliged to be happy to be here as a guest with Enrique and all of you tonight.
Thank you for being on the show, Isaac.
Thank you.
Likewise. So, tonight's topic is going to be on the issue of nutrition on education. Um, as you know, many Hispanic people have one of the worst health in the entire United States, and primarily has to do with the foods that they consume. A lot of Hispanic foods are very tasty, but the problem is the majority of them is not good for us. You know, they can contain a lot of saturated fat, trans fat, and in addition to not having a healthy lifestyle, what people consume is also cutting off the life expectancy of many Hispanic people, and 90% of a lot of preconditions that Hispanic people have can be prevented. So you were mentioning that you work for the healthcare industry. So explain to the audience what you do and what are your experiences in relation to health in the Hispanic community, and what can be done to encourage Hispanic people from leading more healthier, productive lives.
So, a little bit about my background. I work, to be exact, in the nutraceuticals manufacturing industry. And what we do is we we put together the materials, and then we manufacture supplements. And so I've seen a lot of good stuff come in and go. I mean, we're not the pharmaceutical industry, so we're not making stuff that's like 90% poison and junk. And a lot of the stuff that I see is it's designated like for men and women because we have different biological sets. So
Mhm.
there's certain things that, is more beneficial for the woman, more beneficial for the men. So a lot of care goes into it, extremely sanitary care. Like we're always changing gloves for every little thing. And our goal is to make sure that this stuff doesn't come across any contamination. We cover up, it's very strict protocol. So I was thinking, uh, why can't we be that way for our bodies? Like why
Mhm.
can't we be strict with what we put in? And so number one on my list, I would recommend for health for Hispanic people, I mean, it could be, uh, we look at our parents and we see how maybe they let themselves go, whatnot. That doesn't mean we have to be that way too.
Right.
Change can start with you. So, what I recommend is just cook your stuff at home. What I do is I shop around and I make food at home. I very diverse, so I don't just eat what I grew up with, the kind of foods I grew up with. My horizons are broad into Indian food, Mediterranean, sometimes Italian, and other dishes. If it's more simplified, the better.
Mhm.
Because for my schedule, I'm really busy. So I, on Sundays, I cook a big, you know, amount for distribution throughout the week for lunch for work.
Mhm.
And you can control what you put in it. Do research too,
Mhm.
our bodies need certain minerals, and there's a lot of things like magnesium, um, zinc, iron, all that stuff. And so I donate plasma
Mhm.
2 times a week. So doing something like that, it forces you to stay healthy. It really keeps you in check as far as what you're putting inside your system.
Mhm.
Because they'll tell you like, okay, your iron level is this, your protein level is this. So it doing something like that it not only helps people because there's people that depend on medicines that are made from plasma, but it also forces you to stay hydrated, stay healthy because they do screenings. So that's another
Mhm.
thing that I would recommend as far
Right.
as food. And I mean, I know it's hard, but eventually one time or another, we got to put that burrito thing down. And, especially if it's, I have a friend who used to tell me, oh, if you eat a wet burrito, it has, I think he said it had like 500 and something calories.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, I was like, I don't even eat a wet burrito. But every time we talk about health and nutrition, he's always mentioning the wet burrito. And one day I said, why do you keep bringing up a wet burrito? Like, when
Mhm.
have you seen me eat a wet burrito? It was all this because a friend of mine's always eating them. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. He's used to uh, preaching to his friend for that. So I understand that. And this
Right.
guy is actually he's actually really he's half Guatemalan and half Mexican American.
Mhm.
So he would be a good advocate for something like this. He's a like semi bodybuilder
Mhm.
slash physical trainer. So I
Mhm.
mean, this guy he's cut. So yeah,
Yeah,
just trying to follow his example.
yeah, I believe that it's very important that Hispanics in particular need to make lifestyle choices. One of the things that we do in Spanish United is that aside from doing community outreach and doing civil rights, we also emphasize in the area of education. And we do workshops where we try to educate the public on the importance of nutrition because in the long run, aside from being healthy, there was an economic factor. And you actually brought up a very interesting point. Like you remember when we were in Artesia on Saturday, and I remember when we were walking around the area, I noticed that there was not one single liquor store, pornography store, tobacco shop, etc. And primarily is because they want to keep their communities healthy. And what I see within the Hispanic community, unfortunately, such places exist. And a lot of those establishments are owned by non-Hispanics. So the way that I look at it is that if Hispanics are educated to not only invest in themselves, but also invest in what they consume, they can also economically develop themselves because when we put things into our body that's not healthy, let it be processed foods, fast foods, alcohol, tobacco, substances, it takes away not only the breadwinner of the family, but also causes a decline within society. So we also have to look at it from a sociological standpoint because I see many other communities that are healthy and strong and prosperous and educated, while our communities tends to be far behind and we represent a larger demographic. So I think it's very important that we as Hispanics and those that are civil leaders in the Hispanic community, we need to emphasize on eating healthy, like you were mentioning, cook your own food, instead of buying things, that are not healthy for us, we should buy things that will bring nutrition. Like my mother and I, we work as well doing nutrition. I am also a life coach. I do a lot of life coaching for many, many people, and I always educate them that you should always think about what you put into your body and see how it has a nutritional value to your body because every time we put something that's not nutrition, we're taking away years to our life. So I think it's very important that we need to be aware that what we consume could either make us or break us.
That's true. You're absolutely right. And I have been doing more looking up on the vitamins that our body does need, and I've seen, according to research, that we do need certain nutrients, and a lack of that, just because it doesn't show up right away, it can actually cause failure in one or more of our very important organs.
Right.
And with that, let me rewind a little bit and go back
Sure.
to what you're saying about the kind of uh, businesses and the kind of things that people profit from our particular uh,
Hmm.
you know, our particular ethnic groups,
Right.
or is that it's a business. There's a system. And nothing's just pops up by accident. Nobody just wakes up in the morning, I just feel like ruining someone's life. It's a system. If people get hooked on things that are absolutely junk, whether it's for the mind, for the eyes, for the lungs, for the brain, uh, people are going to spend money to consume that. And then there's going to be problems like DUIs, arrests,
Hmm.
jail time. And then, oh, well, what happens next? Okay, you have to pay this fine, or get them in a rehab program, and all these things cost money from somewhere. So
Hmm.
these are all just a bunch of piggy banks that people like to just grab a hold on to.
Right.
And DUIs, I have a cousin actually that he had a huge drinking problem. And I mean, he lived with us for, at many occasions. So I mean, he was like a brother,
Hmm.
even though he was a cousin. But one day I asked, "Can I get a ride?" He goes, "Yeah." So we go in, and he has a box, and before he starts the car, he pulls out like a tube and he breathes into it,
Hmm.
and then the car starts. And then he goes, "Oh yeah, I got this by court order, and I have to pay this much for it, and I have to submit a cartridge, and then they look into it." And he says, "I can't even listen to music because every so often there's a beep that comes on, but really low. So as soon as that beeping goes on, he has to breathe into it again. If not, then the car will just stop." And I'm like, wow, and I didn't really remember the exact numbers that he was saying, but I mean, that that's what I'm talking about. I mean, he's buying the alcohol, so the liquor store gets their money, and then the cops pull him over. They get their check for their time, their effort, and then they put that device in his car, and then my cousin has to pay for it. And I'm pretty sure there's some profits in there somewhere. So
Hmm.
it's just profit margins just stacking themselves each on each other. So, and I mean, yeah, and then also, like you got the substance abuse. I mean, yeah, drug dealers are making the money, but then, the arrests, and then, the court appointments, tax dollars and all that stuff, and then rehab, and then, whatever else, you know,
Hmm.
and then probably whatever was taken and stashed in the evidence locker, the cops probably just pull it out and go, hey, that's a few more bucks, but I mean, it's like
Well, yeah,
a
that's
constant
that's
trap.
exactly, and that's something that I have seen within the Hispanic community that all these vices are readily available, and in many cases, it's a temptation. And for those that unfortunately don't come from homes where they're brought up with values and morals, it's very easy to get caught up into those temptations. And like I said, I really want to see the Hispanic community prosper and develop itself and give back. But again, a lot of it has to do with what we consume. And another thing that I also see with a lot of places where Hispanics are the majority is that you see a lot of fast food places like McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, etc. While if you go to other places where other ethnic groups live, you don't see such places. And like you said, they either make their own food at home or they have their own places where they make everything fresh. Like I remember when I was with my friends Saturday, we went to have Uyghur food. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Uyghur cuisine or not, but it's kind of like a fusion of Turkish and Chinese because the Uyghurs are an ethnic minority in China that they are Turkish Muslims. But everything there is fresh. I'm good friends with the owner there, and ingredients are very crucial because again, a lot of the chemicals that are in processed foods also contribute to mental illness, not just to, physical problems, but also to mental issues. And I feel that a lot of the problems that our people have, a lot of it has to do with the chemicals that's within our food, that could cause mood swings, it could cause depression, anxiety. And I think, Hispanics need to be educated on reading labels. It's like if there are things in the products that we cannot pronounce or they look that it says that it's artificial, we should keep away from it and abstain from it. I think it's very important that we need to be aware of what we consume in terms of food.
Absolutely, yeah. Going back to the Turkish Chinese restaurant, that's actually interesting. I'd actually look into that because I know the Turkish menu is extensive. They have a lot of dishes, a lot of different stuff, and I mean endlessly. And Chinese is really good and has a lot of good. I mean, I usually go for the westernized slash Chinese, like the sweet and sour, all that
Right.
stuff,
Yeah,
because
I know.
a lot of the foods I actually can't eat, like authentic Chinese, but I know they got a lot of good stuff, really good stuff.
Mm.
And then as far as looking into what you are pulling out of the shelf or from the refrigerator section in the store, yeah, it is very important. I usually do that with things that I'm not familiar with. There's a lot of products that I've been getting for a very long time. And, there's always coming out with new products, sometimes new labels. So you do want to look into it. And if there's something that has like every letter in the alphabet, yeah, you kind of have to wonder about that.
Mm.
And they want you to read and then just quit after like a third of the way and just say, oh, forget it, I'll just take it because I need it. And
Right.
a lot of the stuff, especially the juices, I mean, it says excellent source of calcium or excellent source of vitamin C, and you just look at it and they'll say 11% juice or something like that.
Right.
That's something you gotta like, just don't even bother with it.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely,
usually get
100%.
100%, yeah, 100% juice. I mean, I go to the more costlier places, like Trader Joe's,
Right.
but there is some things that you shouldn't get. I mean, even Trader Joe's has some things that you might not want to get,
Right.
but for the most part, a lot of the things is really good. The
Right.
produce, um, I go to ethnic markets too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's the same thing with me. Like for example, my mother and I we like to go to this ethnic grocery store that's called Super King. I'm not sure if you have it where you live
we
at,
have
but
one.
it's
We
it's
have one. I go there
predominantly
too.
yeah, it's predominantly like Mediterranean, but it's very good in prices, and we get most of our produce there. And a lot of the meat that they serve there, aside from pork, is very fresh because the Armenians they cater a lot of halal and kosher meats to a lot of their own community. So a lot of the people that are not Armenians also benefit. So it's always good to try to consume as fresh as possible. And another factor is the economical part. A lot of Hispanics like to complain, I would like to eat healthier, but it's more expensive. But again, I always ask them the question, it may be more expensive, but why is it that you have the money to put 1,000, 2,000, $2,000 on your lowrider car with hydraulics, or you're able to take out a loan for 15 grand for your daughter's quinceanera, which is a 1 day event, but you said that you don't have any money to consume healthier food, which is actually an investment for yourself and for your family. So that's another issue. Like we also have to put our priorities in order. Many of our people, unfortunately, that come from lower socioeconomical backgrounds, when they're able to get money, they want to buy whatever they can because they've never had anything. But at the same time, I see it as a form of wasteful spending that they're buying things that they don't need and then they complain that they don't have money for other things that are much more important. So I think education in terms of how to manage one's money and to invest in their health is something that also needs to change because there's no reason if we make a good amount of money but we spend it on things that we don't need or we just end up sick and then we can't even enjoy what we have.
Yeah, I agree. And I have experienced this for myself. I've spent a lot of time on reckless spending, so I know how that goes. And I think what it really, really takes is the willpower and the discipline. And sometimes it's good to just stay away from the outside, like stay away from, let's say if you're used to, going out with friends or, having these eat out like expensive dinner nights, I mean, cutting that down, it really does help out,
Mhm.
and me personally, I need solitude. So that helps too with it because it sort of keeps you from having that tendency to always be wanting to go out.
Mhm.
And I've done that, I've had my share of, handful of years of, wanting to go out and have to have the best fashion, have to have the best this or that. And so, I mean, those fun times were fun, but I'm at a point where what we're talking about, I'm actually just, I mean, getting into the prime of it because, we're getting older, we're not getting any younger. So if we don't take care of our health, nobody's going to do it for us,
Mhm.
and, what if people don't, what if we get to the age and then what if people just don't want to take care of us? How are we going to help?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
going back to the Chinese Turkish thing.
Yeah, the
Um,
Uyghur cuisine.
yes, let's go to the Chinese part. So this is where uh, the beautiful people of China have contributed greatly through centuries of practices and developing uh, really, really great systems of mind, body, and health.
Mhm.
And like with the arts, like the Tai Chi and, all the other different various systems of self-defense. And I mean, these things also help greatly too. And uh, yeah, so like if you make a formula of every good type of thing you can possibly put in your lifestyle, getting maybe taking walks to the beach,
Mhm.
um, be in areas where, it's you got a nice altitude going. The beach is really good, you know, because of salt water
Right.
and, it's good for the skin.
Right.
Eating healthy, uh, going for walks, exercising,
Mhm.
working out, all these things and taking advantage of it because, you know, it it's it's too easy to pass up and it's more comfortable to just be more relaxed because the things that we don't want to eat, we're supposed to eat. And the things that we really love to indulge in, those are the things that we're not supposed to, because that's what
Exactly.
tastes good. So,
Absolutely. I do agree with you. I work in San Gabriel Valley, which is, you're familiar with all that area. It's majority Chinese enclaves of Arcadia, Temple City, Monterey Park, Rosemead, etc. And you actually mentioned an interesting point. The authentic Chinese food, particularly the ones that are from the mainland, are actually much fresher and healthier than, like you said, the more the westernized. When people think of Chinese food, they think of usually Panda Express, but that's not really even Chinese food. That's more like
yeah,
more westernized Chinese food. But if you try like the authentic Chinese food from the mainland, as with every state in the United States, every region of China has their own style of cuisine. Like for example, the cuisine of the southern part of China, there's more like seafood and sweet and sour stuff. But if you go to the north part of China, like particularly closer to Russia, they use a lot of millet instead of rice. They use a lot of lamb instead of pork. Um, Part of it is the Muslim influence, but also because of the environment. Like there's certain things you cannot really grow or cultivate like in colder weather. And then you have like ethnic minority cuisines, like for example, like the Uyghurs of Xinjiang province and the Tibetans, which have their own cuisine. So, I also practice martial arts myself. I practice Kung Fu. I practice Wing Chun. And from my experience, it's helped me be more not only healthier, but more flexible. It's giving me discipline and being more focused on how to have a better outlook on life, how to have better relations with people. And also, it keeps me physically fit. So I really feel that if Hispanics, in particularly, if they were to associate with a culture, for example, like the Chinese, who aside from economically being more prosperous, but they also have a lot of positive things in terms of education, in terms of discipline, in terms of values, in terms of health. I think that would be tremendously beneficial to the Hispanic community. Let me give you a brief story. On Sunday, I went to a play called Too Many Tamales. It was written by an author by the name of Gary Soto. It was a very interesting play. The play presented a positive image of Hispanic people and also taught the values and lessons of honesty and morality. And what I thought that was interesting is that right at the end of the play, one of the sponsors of that play, which is at a Chicano theater over in Lincoln Heights, is the fact that it was sponsored by the Chinatown Service Center. So the Chinese were actually sponsoring the Hispanics to not only have their theater, at the same time uh, promoting inclusivity. So I think if we could have people that would include us in things that also invest in us, I think we could go far in many places. But like they say, we need to associate with people that will bring us up, not bring us down.
I agree. I agree. That's actually very interesting.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah. It was actually a very interesting event. Like I said, I was not expecting that the Chinatown Service Center was going to be pro promoting and also sponsoring the event because that book was written by a Chicano author, and all of the actors were all Hispanic. But I was amazed that the Chinese community actually wanted to sponsor. But I think they're doing it also as well because they also want to give back and they also want to include Hispanics and everything. Because as you know, Hispanics, we tend to be excluded from everything, but that's a way to be included. At the same time, we could copy and emulate the positive aspects of another culture that could help us be better people in terms of health and education in particular.
yeah, that's goes to show that it's a matter of people who can think on terms of what's practical and what's sensible. And for that kind of production to be supported it's very interesting. I mean, you know, not everybody thinks exactly the same, and people want to see the bigger picture. And I mean, for people to see potential and value in that, then that's just the beginning, And I mean, as for as much as resources as we have, that we should really definitely make moves on something like that. And it probably had a good turnout too, so that is just a stepping stone for more performances or for more people with talent, to come about, because I think there's going to be a change happening where people are going to be able to express themselves more and be able, because everybody has a story,
Mhm.
and there's people out there that have a unique story, and there's people that could probably blow you away just with, half of their life story. I mean, and those people eventually are gonna be discovered, eventually, something's gonna come about. And even the most extraordinary people have had simple, humble beginnings.
Right.
I mean, I mean, there's like incredible stories of, I mean, people not giving up, people pursuing, people striving, till they get their goal. And then, like, for instance, there's, in the Bollywood industry, there's an actor, and his name's Shah Rukh Khan. Before he became an actor, before he got discovered, he went looking for a job, and he went out for so long that his shoes wore out. Like, he developed holes on the soles, and
Mm,
he made a movie about it later after he became an actor.
mm,
But it's like you can do something like that. I mean, you can take even the most simple concept and then turn it into your life story.
mm.
You can,
Absolutely. And I feel
inspire
that
people.
I think through the arts is a good way of legally and productively expressing one's story. And I think that's a healthy outlet in getting a Hispanic youth, and particularly in expressing their stories without having to write it on a wall. So I think it's very important that there needs to be more emphasis on the arts, but also on nutrition. Like I feel that, if there were more workshop, like right now, Spanish United, we're trying to be in the process of establishing a community center. And hopefully, if that goes well, we would like to have a community center where we provide workshops not only for the people, but also for Hispanic people that want to be healthy, where they could make healthier choices in terms of lifestyle and diet, life choices, because I think that will benefit. And again, getting back to what I was telling you, like many services that many wealthy people or even other minority groups that have means, they have access to. Well, many people that I have interviewed from the Hispanic community have told me that a lot of services or resources they would like to have, they just don't have it. Like you have those that want to give back to the community, that want to educate those on doing better for themselves, but they don't have the resources, for example, to establish a community center or to even get an opportunity to have an audience with the mayor to discuss those matters. So I think it's very important that we have to take the initiative to try to come up with ways to create workshops to educate Hispanic people, particularly on healthy living, particularly like the housewives that stay home, because, most of the family will eat whatever the mom or the wife puts down at the table. So I think if the wives are educated properly on nutrition, on not putting so much fat, putting so much pork, or putting things that are like high in sodium, high in sugar, high in etc. I think they could change entire generations, because again, even those that are stuck on their ways are more harder to reform. But I do believe that the future generation, the children, the grandchildren, they have an opportunity to actually live a healthier, productive life, but it has to start when they're little.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. That's very important to put all these things into perspective and to consider what we can do and what we should do. And, nothing's impossible. I mean, even if there is an invisible barrier that wants to keep us from growing and improving and becoming better versions of ourselves, that doesn't mean that we can't still do this. I mean,
Right.
anything is possible. And it's very, very difficult sometimes, but sometimes we're our worst enemies. And it's not that anyone's keeping us from doing it, but sometimes it's just too easy to just, be very relaxed and just, oh, I'll do this tomorrow. I'll put it off till tomorrow, or I'll do this next week.
Exactly. And that's something that
And
Hispanics have, that they have what's called a mañana mentality. Lo hago mañana, 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 mañana never comes, and nothing changes. Well, anyway, Isaac, we come to the end of our time, but I want to tell you thank you so much for being on the show as a guest. And for our listeners that are tuning into the program, Spanish United is on all social media platforms. We are on Spanish United YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, now known as X. Anyone that wants to give the donation can reach out to me. Anything that you give is going to be used to help someone in the community, and anything that you donate can be used as a tax write-off. We are a 501 503 nonprofit. And again, I want to tell you, Isaac, thank you for being a guest on the show. And as soon as I finish, I will text you and email you the link.
Thank you. Likewise.
Have yourself a wonderful evening.
You too. Have a great night. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.